welcome to another fantastic episode of Rock and Roll Confessional. I'm CWS.
I'm Rita Wild. Hey, C-Dub, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and this is really a cool episode because it's the first one that we've ever had more than one band member.
Yeah.
So we're actually having 5 band members plus you and I, so we got 7 people on
That's
this
amazing.
call.
You know, we all grew up loving music, and we can go back through so many records that these gentlemen played on. It's like it's a modern day wrecking crew, and there will be stuff with that in the future. But these guys have just put out an EP. They're so good. I love every one of them, and together they make up the Immediate Family.
Yeah.
This episode, we're going to talk with 5 of the greatest studio and touring musicians: Waddy Watchel,
Leeland Sklar,
Russ Kunkel,
Danny Kortchmar,
and Steve Postel. All of them make up the Immediate Family.
These guys have been around since the 70s, and just a few years ago, they created the band The Immediate Family. The band just released a new EP titled, what is it?
Slippin and Slidin. And God, that hook in that song, Slippin and Slide. There's so many
Don't
hooks.
sing it.
Okay, I won't. Why, I sing that bad?
Well, first off, there was no lyrics in your version.
Yeah, but it's, it's just that hook that just grabbed me.
Yeah.
But they will have an album out in the new year, and then a documentary also. But it's called Slippin and Slidin. It's good. Good stuff.
It's got 2 new songs, and there's 3 cover tunes that they do that some of the guys originally worked on, which is why they chose those songs.
Yeah, like Danny Kortchmar working with Don Henley. Some great stuff in there. Oh, so many good songs.
So good. So let's just get to it, okay?
Here we go.
With our interview with all 5 band members of the Immediate Family.
I want to start off and say thank you, gentlemen. It's such an honor, such a pleasure to be talking with all of you. I can't tell you how much your music has meant to me. I mean, it's been imprinted in my life and a part of it for so long. And I just want to say thank you. And if I fangirl a little bit, just excuse me for that. But it's called Rock and Roll Confessional. And I'm not sure if there's anything that you would like to confess. I have something to confess to Waddy. So
go ahead, Rita.
Okay, Waddy, I'm sorry. I saw you at the Roxy. You were playing with Warren Zevon. This was before I got in radio, and I had just picked up this Jackson Browne bootleg, and it was called "You Just Want Meat, You Don't Want Me, You Asshole You." And so it was like, I think that you had played on it or something like that. And, I remember shouting that out at the Roxy. Hey, play, you just want me, you don't want me, asshole you. And you were very kind. You said, we don't know that. We haven't rehearsed that one. So my apologies on that.
Wow. Long ago. That was a great night, though.
Yeah. I want to talk a bit about the past because I think it's important to document history and to make sure that people understand who you all are and what you did and what you're responsible for. But I also want to talk about what's going on now with Immediate Family. We got the EP in, which was really good. If people haven't heard rock and roll in a long time, I urge them to definitely check this out because it reminded me of this is rock and roll, people. Slippin and Slidin and Cruel Twist. Absolutely love those. Yeah. And I can't wait till the album comes out. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how you all got together? I mean, in olden days, you would have said this was a big supergroup because you all have, just monumental testimonies of what you've done in the business.
Danny, why don't you tell her how we got involved with you?
All right. I've been chosen to to tell this story. As you probably know, Rita, all of us have known each other a really long time. And Russ and Lee and I have been playing together for north of 50 years. Yeah. We started playing together in like 1970 or something like that, with James Taylor. And we've been playing together in various configurations ever since, but always backing people up. And we backed up, as you probably know, a lot of different great musicians on the road and in the studio. But at this point, I got a record deal. I was offered a record deal from a Japanese label, Vivid Records. And I thought about, well, how do I want to make this record? What do I want to do? And then I realized after calling Russ and Lee, they were in town, amazingly, because back then, 3 years ago, everyone was out all the time doing tours, especially these fellas, because they're very much in demand. But amazingly, Russ and Lee were there because that was the start of the thing. And Wad was still on the road with Stevie, but he was back for the last session, and then he also overdubbed on everything. So once we did the album, once we in the process of recording all this stuff, and it was basically my songs. That was a solo album, so it was all my songs. But it was obvious we should make it. As it went along, we said, "Well, let's make this a band for God's sakes," And we got 3 singers, Waddy and Steve and myself. We got 3 writers, 4 really. Leeland doesn't write, but the rest of us do. And we realized it just kind of fell together. There was no no one moment when we said, this, and the strings, the violins surge upward. There wasn't any of that. But at the same time, we all felt we were on the same page. We said, yeah, let's do this because it's so much fun. We love each other and we love playing together and we love the music that's coming out of this. So it just fell into place. We started gigging together and now we're here.
Lee and I heard the violins.
Like somebody heard them. Yeah.
It was actually a viola.
Oh, yeah.
The full string, the full orchestra. Okay, guys, come on. Let's not be cheap,
Okay.
What would make this different than any other day?
That's great stuff. But you've got to be really excited because I guess the album in 2018 was that Japanese album. And I don't know if that was a live record or not, but you got the opportunity to do another one. So you've got this EP, but you're working on more material for another complete album, which I think is fantastic.
Go ahead, Russell.
Okay. Well,
come on, Russ.
Actually, before the pandemic happened, we went into the studio and recorded 17 new songs.
Wow.
All no covers, just all original material. So we actually have a complete record in a can. And we intended to put it out sometime this year, like by, in the summertime. But because of the pandemic, as everyone else's career, it happened to them too, everything gets pushed to next year. So what we've decided to do is to draw from lots of other things that we have recorded. Danny's album being one, a live record that we put out in Japan when we toured over there, to do various different EPs, this being the first one, to just kind of carry us through this time period until we decide to release the album next year. And the album release next year is dependent upon the completion of a documentary that Denny Tedesco is doing, who did the Wrecking Crew documentary. So we want to have both of those things out at the same time so they can cross promote. So we're going to do a series of EPs between now and then. Will the EPs have more cover tunes on them? They might.
Because you want to save all your material for the album, I'm sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we do have enough songs that I think the album is going to have maybe 12 to 14 songs on it. So we do have extra songs of new material that we recorded that we probably may include 1 or 2 on the future EPs. Did I pass the test, fellas? Is that it?
The ding was, yes, you did.
I'm so glad you answered, Russ. You did a beautiful job.
I got to say what's so amazing to me is that, we've all heard about the Wrecking Crew, and I kind of feel like you need to be deemed something even larger, like the Demolition Crew or something like that, because not only do you guys step in and into the studio and work with these bands, but you guys produce, you guys write, you guys do almost everything, which is absolutely incredible to me. I mean, you guys have taken it to like the highest level that you possibly can. You guys are amazing. So hats off to you for all of that.
Well, that was
Thank
one
you,
of the,
CW.
That's one of the things that Denny talked about when he started this project with us. He said, basically the Wrecking Crew, and this is not denigrating them, they're the greatest musicians
Absolutely.
ever. But he said basically they were together, their heyday was about 12 years. And other than maybe Hal going to Vegas with Sinatra or something, they never left the studio. They just worked around the clock. And people in that period never realized that when they were listening to Sinatra, the Mamas and Papas, the Association, the Beach Boys, Tijuana Brass, it was all the same players on all of that stuff because they didn't get album credit so their names weren't known. But Denny said, the difference really is that you guys have been doing this for a half a century, and that you've toured, you've produced, you've written. It's a very different thing than the Wrecking Crew. And that was the thing he said that really appealed to him about this, that it wasn't like the Wrecking Crew 2 like continuing on, like the baton's been passed. It's a very different dynamic to this whole thing. And that was the thing that was appealing about working with him on it, was the fact that that's his vision for this, is to show that side of it.
Yeah, and that's why the immediate family, the name that Danny came up with, really, I mean, I know you mentioned CW, like we have a different name, but the immediate family really does explain, what we're all about.
Absolutely.
And Steve's way too quiet.
Yeah, Steve is too quiet.
Just you wait.
That's enough.
Okay, good.
He's planning the strategy.
That's excellent. Lee, I understand that once you were in a studio with Tommy Tedeschi and Hal Blaine.
Yeah, many times.
Oh, really? Several times?
We worked a lot together.
What kind of songs did you work on?
Oh, we did TV shows,
Okay.
We did movies, we did albums. I mean, yeah, I got in at the tail end of the Wrecking Crew, and I did a lot of stuff with all of those guys: Larry Knechtel, Mike Milvoin, Mike Rubini, Dennis Budimir, all of them. So.
Oh, no, I mean, it was just, it sounded like something that was just amazing to be a part of. Hal Blaine was just so fantastic. I mean, the part that I remember from him being in with Mark and Brian is talking about Bridge Over Troubled Water, getting the drum sound for that. And it was like, fuck yeah, man, that is just amazing. It's awesome.
Hal was remarkable. And the greatest thing about Hal was his sense of humor and his joke telling, because the minute you walk in a room and saw Hal, it was game on, and he would go on for the whole session, and you'd be cramped and in tears by the end of the day, just with the jokes that this guy would tell. He and Mike Melvoin were the two best joke tellers of anybody.
And not to compare you guys to the Wrecking Crew, but I know a lot of times when they were working, they would create licks and drum beats and things that the original band members would then have to go and learn. And I'm wondering if, when you guys do your sessions, if that was ever the same situation, or is it just something that you're kind of told, play this and play this way, and that's that?
No, we would make up for the most part, we would make up what you heard us doing. That was the one reason that people seemed to keep wanting us to come to their sessions, because we would bring that to it rather than just reading the notes on the page. We would, just say, I just want to do it like this, and bring your own influence into it. And that became a very important thing for the four of us. And then for Steve, too. We met Steve, and I think in the middle of the 80s. I've been working with these guys since 1970. They started together in 1970. Yeah. And I met Leeland in 73, I think, at the latest. Yeah. And then we were all in the studio together by 74, working constantly. And I think about 10 years later, we all started meeting Steve. That's why he still looks fresh.
He hasn't been as stressed out.
not as road worn.
It's a funny thing that you say about the bands would have to learn the parts, because all of us are in an era where often we went on the road. I found that I often had to learn the part that I played, because, you'd go on the road and they'd say, well, play what you played in the studio. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I ended up having to learn what I played.
So you have to relearn it.
Relearn, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, for the most part, though, like in the studio, like Waddy said, we would create parts, and then for so many of those artists, then they had a road band that would go out on the road, and they would have to learn what we did on the records. And so we were at the front end of the creative process, and a lot of times, they would be out for months, and a lot of the parts got improved, during the course, because when we go in the studio, we really have to we work fast, and so you might only have a couple hours to put some songs together where they've got, weeks and months to refine them. But generally the seed was planted by us in the studio.
Nobody improved our parts.
Of course not.
They couldn't.
Not yet.
Once we play them, they stay played.
I was trying to think of the genealogy of how all of you got together. And I think the earliest part I could find is that, Danny, you had a band called the King Bees. And that's how you kind of met Peter Asher.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
is that the beginning of this band? I think if we take it through like James Taylor and Carole King and Joni Mitchell and the Rolling Stones and Crosby, Stills and Nash and that whole Laurel Canyon vibe.
I wouldn't say it was the beginning, because everybody else was doing stuff too. It was when I met Peter, and then my band, the King Bees, went out on a short tour on the East Coast, backing them up. And at that point, Peter and I became good friends. The next band I had was the Flying Machine with James. And when that band didn't do very well, but so when James left and went to London, I gave him Peter Asher's number. So that's how he met Peter, and that's how he made his first album on Apple. But Peter Asher is very, very important to all of us. Very important. He was the catalyst that brought us all together ultimately. So he plays a huge, monumental role in us coming together.
And I know, Russ, you actually went to Poly High School, right?
I did.
Yeah, we're in Long Beach.
Graduated too.
Wow, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Poly's still doing well.
Last year.
At least he finished.
It's okay.
We just had we had Paul Williams on a couple of shows ago, and he went to Wilson, which is right up the street from here. Some of you guys worked with Paul. Was it you, Lee, that worked on a couple of his first albums?
Yeah,
We both did. Yeah,
I worked with him and toured with him. And
We all
still
played with
really close.
I played a show with Paul. It was fun.
Yeah, great
Really?
guy.
Okay.
Paul played.
Oh, okay. He's a good guy. He's a
So
good guy.
when you guys go into the studio, how do you know what your responsibility is when another band brings you in? How do you know what your role is?
They bring us in because of what we do. You know, like if I'm brought in on a session, they expect me to play a solo. You know, Leeland's going to obviously be playing bass. Russell's
Right.
going to knock him out with drums, and Danny, same rhythm guitar and lead guitar solos. So that's why we're being brought in. Again, we're not being brought in to read the charts. This town is full of guys who can read circles around me, and probably everyone in this band can too. But we're brought in because of our song sensibility and what we bring to a song. So they're expecting us to, you know, if we were just to sit there and go, what do you want me to do? I think that wouldn't really work.
Yeah.
You know, they expect you to go here. I think I should do this here. You know,
that's all true. What Waddy just said, that's absolutely true. But there's one more factor to it. We've been doing this for so long that it's kind of this unspoken ritual that we go through. We really listen a lot, and we may have a chart, we may not have a chart, but we really try to find out what the song or the artist needs and wants, and then we produce and present it. But, you know, it's that, you know, we don't just jump in and go, this is what I'm going to do and you're going to love it. We want to please them. We want them to be happy with the finished product. So there's a lot of big ears on this screen right here. So everyone listens a lot.
The song tells us what we're there for, really.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it was one of the Carole King sessions that Russell, you played on, and everybody got the chart music, but you asked for the words. And I thought that was really unique because, you know, a lot of people don't really consider the words once they just want to get the groove down and stuff. But I love that.
Yeah, well, Carole always had lyrics. We're working with Carole, you know, she always had lyrics available, but it meant a lot to me. I kind of wanted to know, you know, when you first hear a song, the first couple times you hear it, if you're sitting on the floor and you're, you know, playing your instrument, you really don't hear the lyrics that much. I mean, you may catch a little bit here and there. But if you can read them, then, you know, in a moment when you're not playing, you can kind of get the real meaning or the gist of the song, and then try to find something appropriate that goes along with that.
And Danny, I know that you worked with one of the most meticulous people in all of the business, Don Henley. I mean, what a rush to work with him, and not only just work with him, but share songwriting credits. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. And I worked with him on 3 albums, his first 3 solo albums. And it was an incredible experience.
And then you got the writing credit for All She Wants to Do Is Dance. That's always nice, the mailbox money, right?
Well, since I wrote the tune, I did get the credit, yeah.
That's nice. But like even on New York Minute, which you guys cover on the EP, you know, I think you are actually listed as first writer on that. That's impressive.
Well, Don and I did most of the work on that, and we brought Jay Windig in to help us out a little bit. But generally, Don and I did most of the work on that.
Yeah, but that's phenomenal. I mean, I can just name albums like Blue from Joni Mitchell that you guys have worked on, No Jacket Required, Running on Empty, Sweet Baby James, Tapestry. It goes on and on and on. Was there anything in your life that you look back on, all of you, and just say, wow, that was just like the moment, that was the best moment ever? Or how do you reel all of those memories in and make it into a reality?
Well, I'm more interested in what's about to happen more than dwelling on what did happen. I think we all know we've been terribly lucky and blessed to have played with all the great people we played with.
Absolutely.
And there's too many high moments to even recount. You know, you just listed a bunch of artists we played with. They were all geniuses and they're all great, and we loved every minute of it. But I think, speaking for myself, I'm hoping that the next, I'm looking forward to the next genius moment, which is what we're doing now. It's us. That to me is the height of what we're doing, because it all ended up here. It all ended up here with us being together and creating this band together.
So in a way, the pandemic was kind of good because everybody's off the road. You can do stuff. You can communicate now. And I saw some video from Lee's YouTube page where you guys were in the studio and you're doing the mask thing, you know, being all conscious about that. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
So in a way, the pandemic kind of helped with the timing of getting this thing done and getting it right.
Well, there's an element of that. I mean, it's one of these things when you're handed this kind of a lemon in your life, you're either going to, you know, sit there and grimace eating it, or you're going to make lemonade out of it. And so I know from my standpoint, I just try to look at every day of this period as how can we be productive and move this project forward in any way we can, so that when the veil is finally lifted, that we're in the blocks ready to go. Because we had so much momentum going on before this.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and so we're maintaining it. It's just everything has become more methodical and slowed down. But the documentary film is still being worked on, and the album is ready to go. So, but there have been, you know, elements of this when we were doing our a cappella videos, and people have really enjoyed those. And we're making, you know, real, you know, serious videos now. So we're gonna keep working through this whole thing. It's just that the thing we're really, really horny for is to get out and play and for people. And that's the thing that we do the best, is just get on a stage and rock the house. Mm-hmm. And as they say, you hold on to the dance floor. You know, you just, let's make it happen. And I'm counting the days until we can all get on a stage together and not wear masks, just play like we were, you know, 10 months ago.
Well, we are getting on a stage in 4 days.
That's right.
Yeah. Well,
and since this is going to play afterwards, then I will ask you, how did the show go, you guys?
It was unbelievable.
It went great.
Really? What were some of the highlights?
Should have been there, man.
You wouldn't let me in.
Yeah.
I bought a ticket, but they said no entrance, man.
I had to put a glass up to the wall outside.
It's so rare that you see an older band like this playing naked. That was really one of the highlights of it all. And that's what people seem to respond the most to. So I wish you'd have been there.
Yeah,
maybe.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
Are you going to play any of the songs that you've written for the upcoming album in the show?
We're doing the EP plus some others. Yeah, we're going to do all the songs from the EP and a handful of other great tunes.
You'll probably do Werewolves of London.
Oh, yeah.
Is that you singing on that, Waddy?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I mean that's just like almost like spot on. It's great stuff, and I love the line about James Taylor fired you all.
Hey, thank you. I told, by the way, Danny and Lee, I don't know. I think Russell, you were sitting there, but I told Peter Asher about that the other day.
Yeah, I was there.
We went to work with Peter, and I told him about substituting that line in the song.
That's great.
He loved it.
Of course.
It's great. Now, I've seen some video of him in the studio with you guys for the immediate family as well, right?
Well, we were working for Kate. Am I allowed to say this? I don't know.
Kate Taylor?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, so she's got another album coming out. Good.
Are you allowed to say it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Sure, honestly, why not? Yeah.
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 You said it. You said it.
It was great.
50th anniversary of Sister Kate.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, she was wonderful. I'd never met her before. I think I met her once briefly on the road when we were out with James, but I'd never played music with her, and she was tremendous and a lovely person. And
I mean, it's so crazy to be sitting in the studio with Peter Asher, Russ, Cooch, myself as the basis of it and realized that 50 years ago, it was Kate, that same group of people making her first record.
Yeah.
It was really pretty fascinating dynamic to it. And
then also the reunion of the Troubadour shows.
Oh,
I saw the Troubadour show. We had James in as a guest on the radio on KLOS with Joe Benson. And I had tickets, to go check that out. And that was just so amazing. And
with
then
Carol.
to see it again. Yeah, it was just unbelievable. And then you guys did the whole album and the video and all that stuff as well. So that is great.
Steve, is there some kind of project you're working on with that, or did that already come out?
It's one of those. Danny and I are working on it, but it's taking a long time. Let's put it that.
Well,
you got nothing but time now. Come on.
not because of us. We're ready to go.
Approvals.
See, Steve, I know that you had a background mostly like in a lot of theater music and stuff like that. Danny, I know that you went to a lot of theater on Broadway as well. How does that all play? Are you doing theatrics, or what is your plug in the hole for the band that makes it work? I mean, I know you do a lot of productions and editing and guitar playing and singing.
Well, because of the theater, I dress up and
like a Vita.
Wardrobe is unbelievable.
That was a long time ago. I mean, it's all, to me, it's all one thing. Like the experience on the road that I had playing Broadway shows morphed into next thing I know I was on the road with Pure Prairie League. I mean, it's all music, and it all teaches you to be in the moment and have to put up or shut up, as they say. And I in the theater, I had some great experience. I played with Bonnie Raitt's dad, John Raitt.
Wow.
Ed Ames, the famous Ames brother guy. And so it was a different world in certain ways. It had its advantages. I was usually one guy and 10 beautiful chorus girls, but that's a whole other story for another show. But I was always doing both. But I don't think it matters. I think we've all done every kind of session, and in the end, it's just building you the music muscles.
And one thing I love about all of you is that, you're not rock snobs. I have to admit, I think I became a rock snob. But you guys, you branched out. You did, I think, Celine Dion, Reba McEntire, people out in the hinter, and it's just all music. Vince Gill, did some of you play with, I think, too?
Well, Vince is who I replaced in Pure Prairie League. He was actually, but I think these guys played on his records.
I've done a lot of work with Vince, live and in the studio. Amazing talent. He's a remarkable musician.
Yeah, he fits in well with
not like
Beatles.
Steve.
He's no Postel. But...
I mean, that's why they kicked him out of the group, so Steve could be in there.
What do you guys prefer? Do you prefer working in the studio, or do you prefer being on the road and touring?
There's nothing like playing live. We love being in the studio. But like Lee said, we're dying to get back out on the road because that's where it really lives. That's where it happens when you have an audience participating with you in what you're doing. And records, and we're all addicted to the records we've grown up loving and needing to hear, but records are an approximation of what the real deal is. And the real deal is walking out on stage and seeing a crowd there to see you and to deliver a show for them that knocks them out, and you come off stage going, we did a fucking solid show. That's the real situation. We love studio, but that element of it is, that's what's so hard about this pandemic, aside from 200,000 fucking people dying, is we can't go work. We just can't go play. You can't do it. So I think we'd all agree that aspect of what we do is the more enjoyable part.
And there's also the tightrope element of performing live.
Yeah.
When you walk on stage, you plug in your guitar, you pick up your sticks.
Anything
and once it starts, it doesn't stop. You have to go, mistakes and all, and you learn how to just turn it into a performance. Where in the studio, it's different. You can stop, you can fix things, you can do stuff.
Sure.
So the adrenaline rush of playing live is what always gets me. Like, even to this day, when I sit down, my heart's beating. I don't have stage fright, but it's kind of like an aha moment. Okay, here we go. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking to Chris Franz, who's the drummer for Talking Heads, a couple of shows ago, and he was talking about the last concert the Talking Heads did. And in the middle of the concert with 50,000 people, David Byrne just decided he's done with the band, and he just walked off the stage, and that was it. And basically the band had to go back and convince him to come back and finish at least the rest of the set. And that's kind of what the end of the Talking Heads was all about.
That's certainly professional.
It is.
It's a good thing he didn't try that with this band.
Yeah, there's not a diva really in the band, is there?
Well,
We're all
five.
Five divas, okay.
Yeah.
Well, when Steve is dressing up in his Evita costume, maybe.
And Leeland with
Lee, you're the diva.
Lee
You're
with his
definitely the
beautiful
diva,
lips.
Lee.
yeah.
No, we have no attitude at all. No.
See, that's what's great. I mean, it's like you're professional enough to go out there and do it, but you don't have that like living in the world as a Phil Collins or James Taylor, but you certainly all deserve that because of all the talent that you have. So it's that dynamic of being kind of like under the radar, but
Yeah.
God,
There's also there's a tremendous respect within the group too, and that comes with being part of a family. Is everybody really is looking out for each other within this group? There's nobody like looking at a pose off in a bodybuilding contest, and everybody's edging their way trying to get to the front of the stage. This is a collaboration of people that truly respect and enjoy being together. And there's an element of being fortunate that that we don't bring to this whole thing where when people meet us, we're like family to them. That there's an immediate kind of, oh God, I've seen you guys for years. Oh, I love you. All this, as compared to like when I'd be on the road with somebody like Phil Collins, people like that, and then people are kind of crapping their pants when they meet them. They're so nervous and stuff. And it's a weird relationship where we have a really nice relationship with people. People really look at us like friendship. It's really a lovely place to be in.
Okay, it's time for a quick break.
Yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying this. We have more coming.
Yeah, I want to thank our Patreon rock stars, our Patreon roadies, and our Patreon groupies. We just want to say thank you and tell you that we appreciate you so very much. Really, your small pledge helps every episode of our podcast. And if you are a rock geek like I am, like
Rock geek, me
like
rock
Rita
geek.
is, please go to our support tab on our website, rockandrollconfessional.rocks, or directly to Patreon so you can make a small pledge, because we are grateful with any pledge that you're willing to give us. It will help keep us going.
All the expensive.
Yeah. So, Reach, before we get into the second half of the interview with the immediate family, you got a trivia question there?
I've got one trivia question.
All
That's
right.
so awesome. I got so much follow-up information on it. In 1970, James Taylor released Sweet Baby James on Warner Brother Records. The previous record, James Taylor, was on a newly created record label, but he was the first artist signed to this particular label. What is the label?
We should know this?
Yes, you should.
Okay.
You don't? God.
I should, but I don't know every answer to every trivia question, just the way it is.
You know a lot.
So now get ready for the second half of our interview with all five of the guys from the immediate family. Speaking of family, how many of you are part of the Spinal Tap family? One way or another. Yeah, Danny, you were in one of the videos that was part of This is Spinal Tap?
That's right. Give me some money. The Thamesman. I was in the Thamesman.
Nice. And
Russell.
Yeah, I was in the Flower Children.
did you guys know it when you were doing the film? Did you guys know you were both in it?
Yeah, I think we did. I think so, because we were all pals with Chris Guest, and that's how we ended up in it. And I don't know about you, Russ, but I think they got me because I had a semi-Beatle haircut at the time, and so I was good. I was perfect to play Ronnie Pudding, the bass player of the. Actually, the zenith of my career, I'd have to say.
And then Lee, I gotta say that I found this digging through the piles of things I have, that Derek Smalls on his last solo album gave a big shout out for you for agreeing not to be on the record.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, well, Harry had everybody that he could get his hands on. So many guitar players in town, so many drummers, and everybody, keyboard players. And but he played bass on his album, and I've been working with him for years, and I work with his wife Judith Owen.
Yes.
And so it was really funny when I saw that he had put that on. He said, thank you for not being on my. It's like it was great, but Harry does a great job. Yeah, Harry's a good musician. So
he is.
I was really glad to be an audience and just enjoy it from afar.
Yeah, and Waddy, did you play with him on that last tour?
I played with, I'm not on his tour, on Derek's record. And I just did that big show he did at the Wilshire Theater a couple of months ago. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I saw you there.
Yeah. And I played on one, a Spinal Tap song on their second award-winning album. A lovely song called Stinking Up the Great Outdoors, which I thought was tremendous.
I think it was cool because you're talking about liner notes, and I think it's kind of fair to say that before albums like, Sweet Baby James and Tapestry, a lot of the side players were never credited. And how did that start? Because that is something that, back then there wasn't an internet. I'd have to read all the album covers and then, oh, he played on that. He played on that. He played on that.
That's really Peter, isn't it?
Peter Asher.
Good for him.
That he insisted that our names appear on James's albums. And I think with James being at the forefront of that entirely new genre of music, that all the people that were aspiring to follow his path would look at his album and they would see our names on it and think that, well, if they could do that for him, imagine what they could do for us. And I think that, I don't know if our careers would have gone with the same trajectory had we not had album credit and had visibility on it and been like the Wrecking Crew, where you're really anonymous on all your projects. So I think if that, and I believe that's how it happened, but it was certainly with Peter, as the guys said earlier, so much of our individual and cumulative careers, really, he's a catalyst that brought so much of it to us. And he's an absolute treasure of a person to be with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to, you've had a long history in the recording studio and so forth. What do you prefer, analog or digital?
Neither.
Neither? Why is that?
I like a paper cup and a piece of string is the best way I like it.
Hello?
It must sound wonderful.
I got to say, Leeland and I had, actually, we all played on Leeland and Waddy and I and Danny did a record with a guy named Pat McGee a couple of years ago that we did here in LA, and we recorded it on 24-track analog tape. And I got to tell you, I love the way that it sounded. I mean, it all got transferred to Pro Tools to be finished, but it was the strangest thing. We go back in the control room to listen to the first playback, and you heard this sound we haven't heard for a while, which was tape rewinding. What's that?
Yeah.
Exactly. But it was very cool. I like the warmth of it, but it's just, it's so cumbersome now, and the tape costs so much money. It's just much better to record inside the box.
Also, engineers have gotten so good at this point that they know how to get a great sound on Pro Tools. And I think it would be hard to really to pass the blindfold test with some of these guys, because they know it's in the chain. What happens from the microphone into the preamp into the console. Really good engineers know how to get a great sound, and basically, regardless of the format, they're going to get a great sound. Guys like Al Schmidt or Nico Bolas or a million other guys, they know how to get a great sound. So
there's that other guy, Nathaniel Kunkel, I think.
Nathaniel Kunkel also. But the other thing you have to remember about analog is that the whole train has to be analog. In other words, it has to. If you start in analog, it also has to be mastered in analog, and the whole thing has to be analog to really have that sound and that quality.
But it stops because it winds up on a CD, which is digital. So,
right.
That's why we love vinyl.
Yeah, exactly. Now you guys are releasing your stuff on vinyl too. I think the EP is going to be on vinyl. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm even wearing vinyl.
That's smart.
As the outer garment or undergarment?
I don't differentiate.
Oh, okay. We have one of our Patreon supporters, Sue B, has a question. She says she used to frequent the joint in Los Angeles to see Waddy and his friends, like Rick, the bass player. Rest in peace. Loves seeing all the all-star musicians show up. Will those nights pick up again after COVID is done?
It'd be lovely. I can't say for sure. We want to be playing as much live as possible. So when, and you know, I really feel for nightclubs because they're the ones I think, you know, big venues are suffering badly, but clubs are really going to take it up the yang because you can only put so many people in a club anyway. And now it's been so greatly slashed down. I don't know how they're going to exist, but
20% isn't going to cut it.
It's not, you know, not for the club owners to make a dime. I mean, we'd be happy to play anywhere for nothing just to get a crowd in front of us again.
Yeah.
But I can't say when. And but we're certainly looking forward to filling up any club we can get our hands on. Sure.
Yeah, the hard part right now for clubs. Yeah, the hard part for clubs at this point is just holding on to the property because they're still having to pay all their bills, their rent, and all the stuff that comes with it without having, even if they had 20% of, capacity, they have zero capacity at this point. And so a lot of them are going under just from the standpoint that they financially can't hold on. And there's the bailouts going to all the giant corporations and nothing going down to help the arts.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sue B, for that question, though. That's great.
That's great.
Yeah. And Rick, the bass player. Love Rick. You guys played a lot with Joe. Rick used to always come in. And
heartbreaking.
One of a kind.
Rick used to come in with Joe Walsh and do like a radio show, for so long. And I miss him. I miss him. Why was Japan the chosen country for the release of the first Immediate Family album? I think that's because you had the deal there, Danny.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I had the record deal there. And it was just for Asia and for Japan, especially, and for Asia. So that's why it came out there first. And now our new record company, Quarto Valley, has bought all the masters. So my album, my so-called solo album, and then the next album, which is a live album, are all now owned by this Quarto Valley, plus the next album that haven't been released yet. And so it's all going to come out in various stages through Quarto Valley, and we're very happy about that.
What was on the Japanese album that wasn't on the EP?
I don't remember.
Something.
The Japanese audiences are extremely educated about their rock and roll history. And and actually Danny and I went there before Immediate Family got together and did it.
Yeah.
And but they know records that guys forgot they were on.
Oh, absolutely.
And they know what guitar you played on what song.
Wow.
Unbelievable the digging they do into the factual background of the song.
So it's just a wonderful place to play anyway. And
well, the fun part there is to do an hour set and then a 2-hour meet and greet afterwards. They are so dedicated, and they line up everybody who was there, and they want pictures and autographs. Great. They are really as good an audience as you could ever dream of.
And that's great because that's where the playing live, is satisfying to you guys, is not only playing live, but to actually meet the fans that are your fans. They're not Phil Collins fans that are, stopping by to say hi to you. It's your fans. So that's what's really cool about that.
There's loyalty.
Yeah, it's great.
Loyalty that's really profound in there. I mean, you'll see them year after year after year after year when you go back, and they're there, man.
How many different cities can you play, like, say, in Japan? I've never been there. So it's like, is it 10 different cities, 5 different cities?
We played 3.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can't. It depends on the venues. They could be upwards of like 10. Because there's cities like Sendai and Fukuoka and, that you can go play those places, but it's usually Osaka, Tokyo, and Nagoya, but go to Kyoto. There's venues everywhere. It just depends how the tour gets booked and what they think they can pull.
One of the biggest things a lot of bands say is they hate being on the road, but I don't sense that in you guys at all.
No, we love the road. The road been very, very, very good to us, as they say.
Yeah.
It's an elixir.
An elixir, yeah. Can you talk about some of Russell? I think one of your big moments in the studio was playing with Bob Dylan and some guy named George Harrison.
Yep. Yeah, I got to do that. I was in New York with Peter Asher. We had just finished an album, an artist that he produced named Tony Kosanak. And I was back at the hotel. I was going to be flying out the next day, and Peter called me and said, put your drums in a cab and go down to CBS Studios. And I said, well, are we going to be cutting some more tracks or something? He said, no, you're going to play with George Harrison and Bob Dylan.
God.
And
Wow.
I think George, they were both in town and they wanted to get together and play some music. So they booked the studio, and George called Peter and said, we need a drummer. And it's just, being in the right place at the right time. Come on. That's a perfect example of it. And here again, Peter Asher, we're talking about, has been so influential in our careers. And I got to have one incredible evening pinching myself the whole time, playing with Bob and George. And then because of those sessions, Bob's producer, Bob Johnson, called me back to come to New York again a couple months later and play on the New Morning album. So I got to, kind of have a double whammy with that. And working with Dylan is like nothing else. He's a really unique individual. I always tell the same story. If he walks into a room, all the pictures tilt. Everybody in the room changes. He doesn't, because he has such a huge charisma.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience, and definitely one of the high points of my life for sure. Other than meeting these guys.
Yeah, that's so cool. Now, Leeland, you were in a band that actually opened up for Led Zeppelin, right?
Yeah.
Wolfgang, was it?
Yep. It was strange. This was the late 60s. Wolfgang, in hindsight, really means a lot to me, because it was through Wolfgang that I met James Taylor. So that was where it all came together for me. But we were called Wolfgang because Bill Graham was our manager, and Bill Graham's real name was Wolfgang. Right. So we thought that's the best way to suck up to your manager. At least his name wasn't Moishe or something. But we had only rehearsed, and we'd never been on a stage together before. We only rehearsed, and it was a great band. It was really good. But Bill said, come up to the Bay Area. I've got a gig for you guys, and we all went up there. So the first time we ever walked out on stage was opening for Zeppelin at Winterland in '68.
Wow.
And, it was, I'll tell you, and we killed it. The band did a great job. Bill was thrilled. But our drummer, Bugs Pemberton, had a friend named John Fishbeck. And John Fishbeck owned Crystal Recorders down on Vine Street, just below Santa Monica. And he engineered, did like Stevie Wonder songs in the Key of Life and stuff. And he would hang it at our rehearsals. And then one day he showed up at a rehearsal and he brought a friend of his with him, and it was James. And so James hung out for a couple of days, and then I didn't think I'd ever see him again, but James got offered this gig at the Troubadour. And they had Russ and they had Cooch, and Carol, but they needed a bass player, and apparently everybody else was busy in town. And so they tracked me down, and I thought I was doing one gig, and 50 years later, I'm still on the gig.
But he fired you, right?
How many times did he fire you?
I got fired by James Taylor. Yeah. I'm a lyric.
I hope you make tour shirts that say that when you sell them at your gigs.
I
was fired by James Taylor.
It would really be funny.
Danny, I know that you've got a lot of great stories and albums that you worked on and so forth. But I was really intrigued with when I heard that you were supposed to be part of or produce the next Van Halen 2. This was with Gary Cherone of Extreme when he joined Van Halen. And what was that experience like?
Well, it was exciting and exhilarating to be around Eddie, who's absolute genius, as well, everyone knows that he is. On the other hand, it was depressing because we weren't getting anywhere. Gary Cherone was not the right guy for Van Halen, and it was becoming more and more apparent. And we were kind of stalled. And Eddie was not coming up with stuff. He was not in a good place. And things were just really, really stalled out at that point. And then they finally fired Cherone and brought David Lee Roth back. And nothing happened then either. It just stalled. And then I got fired.
Were you part of the? You got fired by anybody? And James Taylor.
I don't think Roth liked me. I don't think Roth liked me too much. You know?
Now, Sass Jordan was like another vocalist who was rumored to be maybe playing with them as well. I'm not sure if that was like before or after.
Wow.
But
I didn't know that, but that would have been better, certainly.
Yeah.
Tony Orlando was actually going to.
With or without Don.
Jim Neighbors.
Jim Neighbors. Yeah. The new stuff sounds great. I'm real excited for that Slippin and Slidin and Cruel Twist. I mean, you know, those both just have got such great grooves, great rock and roll stuff. So I can't wait to hear the rest of the album and all that good stuff when that's coming out. And I hope to see you guys live. Is there anybody that you've never played with, and I'll ask this all individually, that you've never played with that you would love to play with?
Yes.
Sure.
Can we name names?
I don't know where to start.
Dead or alive?
Sly Stone,
Ooh.
Miles Davis, Muddy Waters.
Oh, God, yeah.
Let me see. I wish I'd played more with Keith. Waddy played a lot with Keith. I wish I'd played more with him, but I played with him a couple of times. I don't know who. Everybody, you know, all my heroes.
Yeah.
Remember when I grew up, Booker T and the MGs.
Sam and Dave, you know.
Yeah, Sam and Dave. You know, there's just the list goes on and on and on. And I think that's true for all of us.
I mean, people look at our discographies and it's really kind of mind blowing when you look at all the discographies, but those aren't inclusive of the community of music. So there's always people that you look at that you think would be really fabulous to have had a chance to play with. And so many are gone at this point. Russ had the great fortune of playing with Steve Winwood, and I always wanted to play. I love Steve Winwood. Back in the High Life to me, still one of the great records.
God, yes.
I'd love to have played some of that stuff. So that's one of those guys that I never had a chance, but I can. But I'm also I'm fanboy, you know. So I can sit back and enjoy the stuff and not think, "Oh, what would I have brought to the table?" I just sit back and dig it.
Yeah.
You know?
Steve, how about you? Anybody you'd want to play with?
I'd like to play with the immediate family. That would be really fun.
Well, if you get the right costume, we know they might allow you into the band.
Well, the first thing is you have to do a gig with James Taylor and get fired first.
I think that may have happened.
Yeah, he's close.
Yeah.
He's close now, yeah.
You know, one thing that's interesting is that one of my goals, and this is really true, was to play with these guys.
Wow.
And so it is for me every day. It's pretty. You know, when I saw them all early on, and it was like I loved watching James, but I always felt like, or watching Linda, like, well, I hope I can play with those guys someday. And so having it happen is better than playing with, for me, than being the backing guy. Like it wasn't. That's what I would think when I'd see James Taylor's band. Not, I hope I can back up James Taylor someday. It was, I'd love to play with those guys someday.
That's great.
Yeah.
How about you, Russ?
You know, I kind of agree with Danny. Look, I've always wanted to know what it was like to play with Eric Clapton, but I got to play with Steve Winwood. Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's like, you know, my cup is already 3/4 full, you know, so to want more is a little bit adventurous. But I mean, there's so many people I would have loved to have felt what it would have been like to play with them. I don't know if I would have been up to it, but I would have loved to have played with Miles Davis, you know, because his music was so adventurous. You know, and it impressed me so much along the way. I would love to have played with the Butterfield Blues Band.
Oh yeah.
You know, that would have been great too. So, but I agree with Cooch. You name it, we would all love to play with them. You know, the people that we haven't got to play with.
And Waddy, you got the chance to play with the Rolling Stones, "Sane of Me," which is such a great song. Are you doing the lead on that?
Yeah, Sane of Me is pretty much me playing guitar. Yeah,
God, that's so good.
Yeah. Thank you.
So good.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, I grew up in New York City, but as soon as I moved to California, I became a country music junkie. So, and Leeland got to play with Merle Haggard, but I never did, and he's one of my ultimate heroes. And but then you go down the list of George Jones, or back to Jimmy Rogers, and all of these great people that have, you know, meant so much to everybody all through our lives. We've been so blessed to play with the guys we've met and known and been through. Yeah. It's been quite a ride, but there's always going to be I've never played with Paul McCartney. I met John Lennon once.
Wow.
Never played a note of music with him. Danny played with John. Never played for Paul. I'd love to do that. I've never met George, but these things sometimes they happen.
Yeah,
and
we're still young.
That's right.
Yeah.
Got time.
Who said that? Yeah.
Just make it through this COVID.
So it's kind of the end of the show, but we have a couple. We have what we call the bonus round, which is where we ask a couple quick questions. We'll ask it to each of you. They should be fairly simple to answer, but we'll see how well you guys do. What was your first concert you went to? So let's start with Russell.
Rolling Stones, Long Beach Auditorium.
Oh, wow.
1965 or 66. And I remember it vividly because the stage was just the stage in front of a drape, a big drape. And a girl slid down the drape from the balcony to run out and grab Mick. That was the first time I ever saw a fan charge the stage. I mean, she really took her life into her hands. But it was an amazing performance. I was a huge fan of the Rolling Stones.
Nice. How about Danny?
Well, the first show, the first concert I ever saw was the Motor City Review at Freedom Land in Westchester County.
Oh, my God.
And they came out, the Miracles, Marvin Gaye, the Supremes, the Spinners. And I went crazy. I couldn't believe I just was so thrilled. I'll never forget it. It was really, really exciting.
Wow. Waddy, how about you?
The first one I went to was there was a DJ in New York called Jocko. It was a black radio station guy, and we had Jocko's radio show had a great show in Manhattan one night. My brother took me with him, and we went and saw a lot of these doo-wop groups, but the Ronettes were on the show, and I basically lost my mind when these three women came out on that stage. I wasn't even old enough to know what was happening to me, but
we'll use our imagination. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, but then after that, Murray the K had his rock and roll shows in New York City. And even before the English invasion, there were these great black, Miracles and all these, Motown kind of reviews. But then I would spend the whole day watching the Nashville Teens and the Zombies, Lovin' Spoonful, and all these great English bands. You'd sit there all day. I'd cut school and just, take a subway to Brooklyn and just watch these shows all afternoon. You watch some terrible movie, then they put the shows on. The bands would come out and do 2 songs each. Yep. Lou Christie, all these one-off acts, Bobby Rydell. But then interspersed were all these English bands, the Kinks, all these bands coming over. It was incredible.
That's cool. How about you, Steve?
Well, the first concerts I saw weren't rock and roll. Like Segovia was the first concert I saw when I was 6 in New York. But the first rock and roll show was Johnny Winter and with Rick Derringer, who I got to play with years later. And I was just, they came out. They both wore these capes, and I think I've just gone to heaven. And it was very mind blowing for me to see these 2 guitar guys with their capes and their long hair and the fans on the stage. It was
That's cool.
How about you, Lee?
Well, the first concert I think that I recall was my parents took me to Gershwin night at the Hollywood Bowl back in the 50s. And the most profound thing for me was right in the middle of Concerto in F, the orchestra stopped playing and they all walked to the front of the stage and everybody looked up and Sputnik flew over.
Whoa. Oh my God.
That's cool.
Nobody had ever seen a satellite that was the first thing ever in the sky. And we just watched it go over the horizon line. And then they went back, sat down, and boom, they continued on with the concert. But I saw, it was either that or I went to my dad took me to the Pantages Theater, where we used to do the Mark and Brian show.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw George Shearing Quintet with the Hi-Los.
Wow.
And that opened my mind to harmony, and it was remarkable. First rock and roll show. I really don't quite remember what that would have been, but it was those other 2 shows really were.
What about when you were an usher at the Hollywood Bowl for the Beatles?
Really?
Yeah, well, I was older. I was older then.
Okay.
But yeah, I was an usher for the Beatles
Oh,
at the Bowl.
that's cool.
I got paid $5 to see the Beatles.
Wow. Wow.
And it was weird. I had signed up the year before to be an usher at the Bowl, and they didn't need any. And then when the Beatles were going to play there, I wrote in for tickets because I was freaking out about the Beatles. And they wrote back immediately and said, show sold out, sorry. And then about a week later, I get a letter in the mail. I'm still living at home with my folks and everything. And I get this letter. It says, we have a special concert coming up and we need extra ushers. So if you're available, call this number. And it turned out to be the Beatles. And but the thing that was great was seeing them. But then they kept me on for the whole season. So I got to see the Ravi Shankar India Festival. Mamas and Papas, Love and Spoonful, Jimi Hendrix, and Vanilla Fudge opening for Hendrix, and it was great. But my memory of sitting there in the Bowl and all the lights went off, and Real Don Steele, I think, comes out and he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles." And it looked like the surface of the sun with the flash cameras going off and the screaming. And I just kind of said, fuck it, in the middle of the show and walked right down to the front so I could hear them play. And they were great. They were great. And there's no monitors or anything in those days.
Yeah.
Right? They just played.
A small addendum to your question, and I know Leeland will remember this, and I'm sure there were similar shows on the East Coast. But out here in California, we had the Lloyd Thaxton Show, Where the Action Is, and Dick Clark. And so every afternoon you had the Lloyd Thaxton Show and Where the Action Is, and they always had live bands. Some of them were live, but you could see all the current bands, you know, Peter and Gordon, the Beau Brummels, you know, Paul Revere and the Raiders. So you could see a lot of bands, you know, just on television after you got home from school. So were there shows like that on the East Coast too? Did you guys have that there?
Of course. Right.
There was also Sam Riddle and 9th Street West.
That's right.
Yeah, all those bands were on that show. My sister used to go dance on those shows. She was one of these girls that loved dancing. So she would go to Thaxton and 9th Street West and all those. And she was part of those groups of dancers. Loved it.
Nice.
I have a million and one questions, but I know time is of the essence. So I just want to say I can't wait until I can see you live in a venue. And I know so many people that are wanting to do that. So many people that work at the shows, the roadies, the technicians, everybody's just itching to get back out there. And I hope and pray that things are good with all of you and that we see you out on the road real soon. And congratulations on this EP. If the album's anything like this, man, that's slam dunk.
Can't wait to hear more.
Slam dunk.
Yeah. Thank you, Rita.
Rita, thank you both.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys
Rock
very
and
much.
roll royalty. Thank you guys.
Bless your heart.
You were able to see the special they did, right?
Yeah.
Which is going to run again.
Oh, good. So
if you go to our website, you can find out that information.
I mean,
think
these guys are, like Waddy Watchel. Every time you see Stevie Nicks, that's her guitarist.
Yeah.
It's just great stuff. Danny Kortchmar, all this great stuff that he's done. Leeland Sklar's on everything. And Russ Kunkel. I'm thinking of Russ Kunkel a lot because on TV there's this song, Lovely Day, that's used in a commercial now. And that's actually Russ playing on the drums.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, man. He played on some great stuff. And Steve Postel. Good stuff.
So thanks to all those guys for Zooming and coordinating that all at the same time. We really appreciate it. Also, a big, big thank you to Lisa Roy at Rock and Roy Entertainment for coordinating the interview.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
You can purchase the Immediate Family's new EP on CD via your local music store or Amazon, or stream it or download it from wherever you get your music.
The band is going to re-air their record release concert. It's going to go up on November 13th, 2020 at 12 noon. You can go to our website and click on the show to get ticket information. And it's not very much. And you saw it, Reitz, already,
I loved
the original.
It. And it's and it's a lot of familiar songs too that, like you had mentioned before, that they work on or co-wrote, some great stuff, and just a tight band.
Yeah.
Have some fun by planning your future for an Immediate Family concert with Styx, Don McLean, Don Felder, Blue Oyster Cult, and more. The show isn't until February 2022, but you can find out more at www.rocklegendscruise.com.
Follow the immediate family on Facebook at the Immede Family, IMMED Family, and also Instagram at the same, at the IMMED Family.
I'm Ned. Go to our website to check out our show notes. CW does just such an excellent job of doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff, coordinating show notes and putting up little pictures, and thank you for that. There you can also find interesting tidbits that were talked about, including cool videos for Slippin and Slidin. Cruel Twist is another one. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. Find the show notes at rockandrollconfessional.rocks.
And wherever you listen to our show, please rate, subscribe, write a review, share it. It will take 2 minutes of your time, and it will make our entire day. All right, Reitz.
All right.
Give us that question again.
You give us the question.
You want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. In 1970, James Taylor released Sweet Baby James on Warner Brother Records. The previous record, which was called James Taylor, was released on a very famous, newly created record label, and he was the first non-British artist to be on this label. What was the label?
Apple Records.
Oh, is that like Apple Podcasts? Apple?
No, Apple, like the Beatles Apple Records, which is where, Steve got all the Apple for Apple, iPod and everything else, Apple Records. But that was such a great record, CW. There's a lot of songs on there featuring George Harrison and Paul McCartney singing background vocals. I think it's the first time anywhere that the lyrics Dark Side of the Moon were written. This is like 68, 69 that he wrote this. And then also, there's a song called Something in the Way She Moves. And ironically, after that, there was a song that the Beatles wrote, George Harrison, Something in the Way She Moves, the first line. So,
interesting.
It's, everybody borrowed and stuff.
A little bit of extra trivia there.
Oh, it's a really good album. I like it a lot.
All right. Well, please follow us, like us, share us on Facebook. Really, we appreciate it. Just go to our page and send it to some of your friends or enemies. It doesn't matter to us. We just need help getting out there to the world. And also follow us on Instagram for updated stuff.
Oh, we got a good one coming up too.
All sorts of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
So, thanks everybody for listening, as we always say, and you'll hear from us soon.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Reitz. Talk to you later. Bye.